The aircraft was a Boeing 777-200, similar to this one. It took off from Kuala Lumpur Airport just after 4:40 p.m. UK time on Friday. It was expected to land in Beijing at 10:30 last night. However, at 6:40 p.m., just 2 hours into the flight, it lost radar contact with air traffic control.
Bound for Beijing, the flight's last known position was in an airspace midway between Malaysia and Vietnam. Malaysia Air Chief said that an aircraft was detected by military radar roughly 320 kilometers northwest of Penang in Malaysia.
I think the commercial data, as I mentioned, I have to repeat again, it was costing starting from 121, but at 130 it disappears altogether from our radar. This is secondary radar. And communication, nothing at all.
And not even what about the military radar? Thank you. The last plot after several intermittent primary plot. There's a last plot that happened at 0215, flight level 295, 200 miles northwest of Penang.
Can you repeat that?
Okay, we are corroborating this, okay? Corroborating this. 0215. I'm not saying this is MH370, okay? It is. We are still corroborating this. We are still working with the experts.
So what are you saying it was?
Sorry?
You don't know what it was?
No.
So what do you see on?
It's a plot. It's a plot. Unidentified plot.
The difference between secondary radar and primary radar. Secondary radar is talking to the aircraft via a transponder, and it gives you the aircraft, the airline, the aircraft type, how high it flies, how fast it flies, and the ticket, so forth. But on the primary radar, it just gives a plot. It doesn't give the identification of an aircraft.
I think that answers a lot of.
Going back to my earlier statement, is that they were not sure whether it was MH370.
Even more reason to go up and have a look.
They were not sure. But it behaved like a commercial airline. It behaved like a commercial airline.
We now know that at 1:28 a.m., Thai radar saw an unidentified blip along an unexpected westward track, but did nothing about it. Around the same time of morning, Vietnamese civil aviation see what they think was MH370 heading westward. 2:15 a.m., Malaysian military radar spots an unidentified blip here at Pulau Perak in the Strait of Malacca.
After several intermittent primary plot. I'm not saying this is MH370, okay?
Bound for Beijing, the flight's last known position was in an airspace midway between Malaysia and Vietnam. Malaysia Air Chief said that an aircraft was detected by military radar roughly 320 kilometers northwest of Penang in Malaysia.
Thai radar saw an unidentified blip along an unexpected westward track, but did nothing about it. Around the same time of morning, Vietnamese civil aviation see what they think was MH370 heading westward.
Investigative reporter and author Leslie Kane.
He looked out and saw some lights in the distance, and the co-pilot and the engineer saw them as well. He wasn't sure what they were, so he radioed in to ask whether there was any traffic in the area that he should know about.
Do you have any traffic?
Do you have any traffic? It's a question no air traffic controller wants to hear.
And when a controller hears these magic words, "You have traffic for me," usually a cold sweat breaks out because it means he's missed something.
In 1986, John Callahan was the Federal Aviation Administration's Division Chief of Accidents and Investigations.
Pilot's asking, is there somebody out here in front of me that I should know about or you know about? He's in positive airspace, which means nobody else can fly unless air traffic approves it. The controller checks the scope real fast. He sees no traffic and he says negative.
The pilot and his crew now see two objects near their plane, only a mile out and on a collision course.
The next thing the controller says, can you see any markings on it?
Sir, if you're able to identify the type of aircraft and...
Can you tell me if it's military, if it's civilian? Can you see any numbers on it? Anything at all to identify it?
Cannot identify the aircraft, but sees navigation and strobe lights in the distance.
When a pilot encounters the unknown, and if that unknown presents a threat to that pilot, seconds count.
Dr. Todd Curtis was an aviation safety engineer for Boeing.
If that pilot reacts in a way that puts that aircraft in danger, it's a concern to all of us.
But still, Henley cannot see them on his radar. He contacts the military controllers to see if the objects appear on their more sensitive radar scope.
Yeah, could you look approximately 40 miles south of...
They pick up another object.
It looks like I'm getting a primary return.
The military controller sees a second signal, but can't confirm it's another aircraft.
I don't know if it's erroneous.
Now adjust their radar to a more sensitive setting. Suddenly, Henley can see an object flying behind.
I'm picking up a hit on the radar, approximately 5 miles inshore, your 6 o'clock position. Do you concur?
Negative. 11 o'clock. 8 mile.
It's a total mystery. Reports the UFO is in front of his airplane, not behind it, as the ATC reports. Is there more than one object, or is it one object moving at incredible speed? And consider their next move. An intense light suddenly bursts right in front of them.
The light was really brilliant, and they described it as having filled the cockpit. And in fact, he described being able to feel the heat on his face, literally feel the heat physically from these objects.
Bright light fades and drops off to the left, leaving behind a pale white light. Radar still shows something not beside, but behind him.
Sir, does your traffic appear to be staying with you?
Now looks to his left and sees something that is unlike any flying object he has ever seen. He describes it as the silhouette of a giant, mysterious craft, twice the size of an aircraft carrier.
Japan Air 1628.
The frightened captain requests an altitude.
The pilot goes from 35 down to 31,000, thinking that maybe he can lose this guy in this descent. Why would this guy following me make a 360?
Right turn, 360.
They initiated the turn and looking out the window, and he didn't see the lights anymore. He didn't see the object. So he sort of breathed a sigh of relief and thought maybe it was gone. Kept going around the turn.
It's disappeared.
Continued on his way and then looked again, and lo and behold, there it was.
Okay, and is he following him?
It looks like he is, yes.
The unidentified flying object appears to be chasing.
Sir, the military radar advises they
Do you have a primary target in trail of you at this time?
The question now, is the crew in danger?
They were eyewitnesses who gave very detailed responses about what they saw. Sometimes the pilot's eyes are the only way that air traffic controller can know if there's traffic in the area.
When a pilot takes the extraordinary step of declaring a UFO sighting over the radio,
the length is unbelievable.
colleagues on the ground can often be skeptical.
Sir, if you are able to identify the type of aircraft, can you tell, is it military or civilian?
I think it's
He's having a hard time saying it's something from outer space. It's not one of ours. Never seen it before. It's not a military.
Most pilots do not report these incidents, fearful of being ridiculed and losing their jobs.
Commercial and military pilots are extremely reluctant to make a UFO report.
Nick Pope was an official UFO investigator for the UK Ministry of Defence.
This is not career enhancing. Quite the opposite. It can kill careers. Discussed extensively the issue of pilot encounters with UFOs. The message seemed clear. Danger.
Official files and recordings reveal supporting evidence of encounters between civilian aircraft and unexplained aerial phenomena.
Bottom line, stay out of the way of these things, whatever they are.
Well, there's a lot of ways to locate an aircraft that we haven't talked about yet, which is heat signatures that are captured by satellites all the time. There's 16 geospatial satellites, as I mentioned before, that are taking information about the emergency locating transmitter, which we haven't talked a lot about. That's not the same thing as what's coming off of the black boxes. The black boxes, I'm not sure, are going to give us a whole lot of data anyway, because of the fact that they only record data for about 2 hours of useful information, of voice speaking and things on the box. So even if that was to be recovered at this point, we know that that flight went much longer than that. So I don't think we're going to get a whole lot of information out of the black box when we do. But the other thing about the ELT is the emergency locating transmitter system is very sophisticated. It's the same one that we use for ships that are lost at sea. Emergency beacons are constantly being able to send signals if an aircraft, or excuse me, if a ship or an aircraft goes into the water. These beacons have saltwater sensing. If they're in the salt water, they go off. And there's 16 satellites constantly monitoring this. So the fact that that ELT hasn't gone off really surprises me, and that would give us obviously an exact location of where it is. So that's one thing, and the satellite temperature
what does that
sensing as well.
What does that potentially mean to you, that it hasn't gone off thus far?
Well, it means to me that there wasn't, that goes off if there's a jar. Either the ELT failed, which is a possibility. In the history of the ELT, it hasn't had a good reliability rate. When it was early on, it was only a 53% reliability rate. Then it went to 83% when we went to 243 megahertz. Now we're over 400 megahertz, and the reliability has been very, very high, which is what was on board this aircraft. In fact, there were two of them on board the aircraft, one in the front and one in the tail of the aircraft. So the chance that both of those suffered an impact and didn't signal, and we can't pick that up, is very, very disturbing to me. That's a piece of information, a clue that I think gives us a lot of speculation about what might be going on there. But if we were to say that they function properly, then I would say at this point that the aircraft did not suffer a heavy impact. So that could be that a successful ditching attempt had occurred, but even at that, the saltwater sensing of the ELT in the water, should it have gone down, would have triggered the ELT as well.
Wow, it all only gets more fascinating and more perplexing too.
Syracuse, New York, March 12, 1977. A DC-10 carrying 200 passengers from Boston to San Francisco is flying on autopilot when it suddenly makes an unplanned 15-degree bank to the left. The autopilot is normally controlled by a compass built into the tip of the left wing. But looking out across its span, pilot Neil Daniels and his two fellow flight officers quickly realize this situation is hardly normal. They all see a UFO that Daniels later describes to be as bright as a flashbulb that appears to be towing the jet in a direction of its own choosing. The DC-10 and all aboard are at the mercy of an extraterrestrial intelligence. The passengers and flight attendants are unaware of the drama unfolding in the cockpit. For 3 terrifying minutes, the flight crew scrambles to regain control while the aircraft is being dragged toward an unknown fate. But then, just as quickly as it appeared, the UFO releases the jet and disappears into the distance behind. Daniel steers the plane back on course, and the flight continues without further incident. But the encounter will affect the pilot and crew for the rest of their lives. Daniels is warned to remain silent about the incident under threat of dismissal by the airline. He only goes public with the story after his retirement. The other members of the flight crew have refused to comment to this day. Was the Flight 94 encounter an attempted abduction? Anchorage, Alaska, November 17th, 1986. Captain Kenju Terauchi, an ex-fighter pilot with years of flying experience, and the crew of Japan Airlines Cargo Flight 1628 are en route from Paris to Narita, Japan. It's a routine flight until two UFOs appear right in front of the plane. The crew watches in shock as the two UFOs then merge with a huge walnut-shaped UFO before they disappear. In the weeks after the incident, Terauchi tells his incredible story to Japanese journalists. But the PR damage has already been done, and the airline quickly grounds him. A week later, John Callahan, then administration, attends a special meeting of the FBI, CIA, and the President's own scientific study team to review the Anchorage incident.
When they get done, the CIA guy standing next to me says to the people, this event never happened. We were never here. We're confiscating all this data, and you're all sworn to secrecy.
Why is the government covering up such compelling evidence? Are they afraid the general population will realize that we cannot control our own airspace?